I got some slides on that one. Okay. Now, it's Paul Peterson who called the cross-cultural psychology as the fourth force of the mainstream psychology. What are the other three? Peterson, Paul Peterson, P-E-T-E-R. Yeah.
This hearing impaired. Thank you for clarifying.
What are the other three? What's the very first major areas of psychology? The very first one invented by, started with Freud, psychoanalysis. Okay. And what's the second one? To counteract that? Behavioral. Okay. What is the third one? Humanistic, existential, and then cross. Now, as I said, our society has become so increasingly multicultural, and without that, will hinder our relationship with our clients. And now, APA, American Psychological Association, required that you understand the multicultural guidelines so that you will not hurt your clients. And I hate to say that sometimes these are very political, but it is necessary. But we should go beyond that, not just because of the guideline, but because it's for the good of our client and for the good of their society. Yeah, Sue O'Donnell and McDavis, and they said, to build, how, like, we could just talk about how complex this area is. Then how can we conceptualize it in such a way that we have a framework to work with? So they started to say, okay, self-awareness, that is very important. You got to proactively become aware of your own values, your biases, and your assumptions. Some people say, I do not have any bias about anybody. My heart is as wide as the ocean. Okay, come on, be realistic. Right? We all have those, things that we like, things that we don't like, how do we interact awkwardly, So we do have that. So we've got to start thinking about what are my biases? It's so easy. It's so easy. It depends on where you were brought up. I'm sure when my dad was brought up in Parkdale, I'm sure people looked at him and said, you are Chinese, right? And he said, no. This is funny. If you are a minority, you live in a majority society, and you work with majority, and you forget about your own identity. And Elizabeth and I were twins in undergrad. We were going to cafeterias together, library together, fun, everything together. One day I was ill, and Elizabeth was by herself, and a friend would come in and say, Elizabeth, where's your Chinese friend? And Elizabeth said, who? I mean, this is life, right? Every day. I don't think myself as Chinese because I was with all these blonde hair, blue eyes, everything else, and all of a sudden I realized I was different when I look in the mirror, right? So this is why when we're talking about discrimination biases, we have to give, a lot of leeway. Why? Under what condition? And is it important to emphasize the differences? More importantly, to emphasize the commonalities than to emphasize differences. I think if we emphasize differences, we build more and more barriers. Understanding the client's worldview and attitudes and beliefs. How can we do that?
Earlier you were talking about your
nieces and nephews and what they look like, right? I was thinking to myself that sometimes what we think we see is not how that person identifies, right? So you can see somebody comes into your office, they look white, but their parents are, one of the parents are Trinidadian or something, right? So they might not identify that way, or the person might look black and they're part Chinese, you know, so you don't really know. You think you see that, right?
Exactly. Isn't that amazing? But we are all created uniquely in the image of God. We are all should be respected. And we all should be, you know, I don't know, I just find that human beings have the dignity. They are unique. We are all unique. And you never know where your ancestors come from. You might even have some Chinese blood, Mongolian blood. Who knows?
I come from the island of Mauritius, which is in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Madagascar. And when my mom was visiting, we do have, the food that we eat is Indian. It's a mix of Indian and African and Chinese. And so I went to the Sri Lankan part of town to run in and buy some groceries. And the grocer, Sri Lankan dad, he spoke to me in Tamil, whatever the language is. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't speak your language. And he took such offense, he actually put all my stuff on the counter, and he went to the back of the store and refused to serve me. Oh! And I know nothing about the Sri Lankan background. I'm not.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not Sri Lankan, and it's, the color and the look, I guess, just fits the type, and, just to add to
Exactly.
your comment. Yeah.
So our looks, create barriers.
Yeah.
So as therapists, we need to overcome. Because I'm sure in our back of mind, we do have that barrier. When somebody comes in and it looks different, and right away in the back of your mind, I wonder what background he or he is coming from, right? I wonder what language is that. And right away we kind of calculate the differences. And it is through relationship that we are all one. We have our same emotion. As I always say, we are made of the same stuff. We are psycho, the cognitive part. We are emotional, which is very strong. And we are social. We much be rather together learning, even on webcam, than to be taking a book and reading in your own home. Because we're social beings. We like to share. That's the way we grow. We learn to relate and we learn to survive. We learn to live. And then we are spiritual. And unfortunately, our secular, institutions in education and everything else, and they want to take that spiritual part away from us. And this is why sometimes, if you talk about the percentage of depressed young people, children, adolescents, let alone regular and seniors, a lot of them do not have this spiritual aspect that we actually live and depend on. Whether you recognize it or not, it's there. It's innate. You could call it Allah, you could call it Jesus, you could call it Buddha, you could call whatever, someone who's higher than you, and that gives you the power to transform, to change, and to feel good about inside. So when you mention about, people ask, are you a Christian? Because that is an important part in our relationship with others. But it's hard to learn to respect or to understand and to learn other people's beliefs. But we are open enough to say, okay, whatever belief you have, whatever the way you communicate with your higher power, go for it. Do it, as long as it helps you to heal. And somebody would say, well, how would you do it? I said, well, I pray. right? I get somebody else to pray for me because I believe in that, and I read the Bible. So, I mean, you can do it without being obtrusive, without being saying, I am right and you are wrong. And you never know because we are created by one. The Bible believe in, one God, by the universe, right? So I feel comfortable with that. But you get all that questions, and you also have to think about yourself. But it would be very hard if you see, I know so little about the Asian culture and how they burn things and incense and food and all this. But then if that makes them feel better, that's their habit, right? So even though I don't know whether it was right or wrong, and it might make me feel kind of, but it's okay. So this is why we should not deny our own feelings at the expense of our job. We've got to respect ourselves, and we've got to explore. Some part of ourselves are constructive, relating to people, relating to the job that we do, but some are destructive that we've got to overcome. If we learn how to overcome those negative feelings, and naturally you could help your client, even without point 1, point 2, point 3, this is the program. Somehow you exude that kind of confidence that you can help yourself and you learn from yourself. And of course, sensitivity. Now that is the part that we would have to develop appropriate interventions. Now Sue, this is Stanley Sue. We have 3 Sues, Sue, Stanley Sue, Sue, and who else? And they're all in cross-cultural. I really admire Sue. When we started, it wasn't easy to talk about cross-cultural psychology. They stick the neck out, and with populism and everybody else, they were good. And every time we go to APA, to get to know them and interact. And I'm going to do a little bit of commercial here. How many people will want to go to APA? It's going to be in Toronto this year, okay? We were in Washington, D.C. last year, was it? Yeah. So, you'll be going? Absolutely. Absolutely. So you don't have to fly, right? You don't even have to book a hotel, right? And usually we have about 12,000 people. And we take over the whole downtown hotels and even restaurants. If you don't get there early enough, you don't even find a seat. And also there are so many things going on. And I'll be, again, very active in the supervision and training section of Division 17, that is counseling psychology. And Paul is very involved in the Division 32, humanistic existential. So we're very active in the roundtables. We have speed mentoring. We have all sorts of things. So I'm going to send you some of that info if you're interested. Because, why should we be practicing in a little pocket of North York or of TGA when the world is coming to us? And if we do not take advantage of that, right? Of course, you are a student or you are intern or whatever, you get the student rate. And if you are a practitioner, you could get that as an exemption, some tax deduction or whatever. So be part of the larger community and learn more, okay? And immerse yourself in it. Okay, beliefs, attitude, knowledge, and skills. For all these elements are very important. Are there any questions so far? Yes.
I would like to clarify from my questions is the difference between spirituality and religion, because it constantly poses challenges not only in the therapeutic context, but also the historical mistreatment of certain religions. And if we can do that, then I'll pose another question. I can pose it out now. On the ground, some of us don't use the word multicultural competencies. We will talk about racialized cultural competencies. So if we get a chance, so I listened to this because we saw the evolution of multicultural frameworks evolve from the 70s, 80s. We moved an agenda from those time to cross-cultural counseling, intercultural counseling, to moving back to race awareness, racially aware counseling, to anti-racist counseling, and then to say that everything is racialized. So culture is racialized too. That's a discourse that is going on in the service sector, where we move these agendas. And I'm sure it will have the lens because I saw the. And the question is, how do we integrate it as an entry point?
And this is what I mean by, whatever you learn, it's not going to be fixed. Society is changing, moving, and always depending who's the leader of that group. And, you're right. We have changed a lot of terms. But basically, we're still dealing with the same thing.
True. But there is a constant battle about commonalities by itself has not produced the change that we have sought for. And actually, we subordinated our differences to move a national agenda. And then nothing changed for workers and clients and services. That would be other. So we, as women of color, started with an Aboriginal woman, Black women, started moving a discourse of difference. So there's some historical stuff, but I am enjoying listening to these things and also reflecting to where we are and where we are going, because you can always revisit where you came from all the time as a reference point to say what you're doing is currently have currency or not, or relevance. So going back to give a commentary just for some people in terms of what we have gone through is those are two different things in my mindset.
Spirituality and religion, yes, definitely.
And especially if we are looking at a holistic notion of
Exactly. I'll be doing a seminar at APA on spirituality and religion and applied supervision. And I think it is the second day. I have to look at my calendar. Yeah. So, yeah. August 6th to 9th. Very good. I'm glad. All right. Let's just move on.